cutting a wound across the English countryside, splitting kitchens. HS2 is also going to be a tragedy for hunting, shooting and fishing. We're on a shoot on the edge of the Chilterns where we've actually filmed in the past. Well, it has its own Act of Parliament now, so let the vandalism commence.
I am devastated. Just the thought of it is frightening, to be honest.
We're at Charles's shoot on his farm in North Oxfordshire, where trains will one day roar past at 250 miles per hour.
It really completely ruins the drive, and it's a shame. In 2006, when I'd viewed the place, thought, what a glorious bit of country, you know, how on earth did we stumble upon this? But it's got this great feature running through the middle of it in the form of a disused railway line. But in the event that was to be reopened, that would be a crying shame and probably spoil the place from our perspective. So the solicitors checked it all out and came back to me and said, look, there's absolutely nothing we can find to suggest that there's a possibility of it being opened or reopened or reinstated in any way. So I was quite relieved, but then I'd find out 4 years later that HS2 was coming right through the middle of the place, and not actually on that line, but really crossing the disused railway line at perpendicular was just a crying shame.
Another sport that's under threat from HS2 is fox hunting, with some of the most famous hunt countries cut in two.
But I can only imagine it's going to be a real pain, because yes, they can cross over bridges and things, but it's going to sever their country, and I can only imagine it's going to make life pretty difficult. Of course, I'm negatively affected as an individual by HS2, by a railway line coming past my home, through the middle of my farm, through my business, and that's of course a great shame. But looking objectively at it, it's a piece of infrastructure that will be in place and for generations to come.
Trains travelling at 250 miles an hour means no wildlife on the track. HS2 will be a wall for wildlife, eventually cutting the country in two. But there is a kind of train track that's good for wildlife, a disused one. The branch lines that civil servant Richard Beeching closed in the 1960s have been an unexpected bonus for British wildlife.
It's used as a real sort of corridor for all sorts of animals, and that's foxes, badgers, muntjac, fallow, roe, even magpies, everything, lots of things seem to go along it, but of course the game bird as well. So we release pheasants and partridges, and they inevitably then just keep walking. They don't know when to stop because they're not quite sure where my boundary is, so they just keep walking, and especially when we've got our neighbours who feed them pretty hard, so they just walk along and keep going, and we have a job to keep them on the place.
The train will disappear into a tunnel underneath the Chilterns and out into the Colne Valley. That's where we meet carp angler Tony Booker.
It's been a huge issue locally, both electorally and in just about every other sense for a very long period of time. So, yes, of course, I mean, the local MPs are dead set against HS2, always have been. And obviously, that's largely because of the impact that it has on the community and areas like this. It's very difficult, actually, to find two people within that organisation that have got the same understanding of what the future will hold. And ridiculous comments have been made by some of the people that we've had meetings with, where, for example, they've suggested that we would still continue to be able to fish this lake during construction period. Absolute nonsense.
You've been here for 20 years. If you were to look out over this in 5 years' time and see either the viaduct or the lake filled in completely, and think to yourself, no child will ever fish here again, how would you feel about that?
As I said earlier on, I mean, it's a cliche word, but I would be devastated. I am devastated. Just the thought of it is frightening, to be honest.
So why do the Tories cling to this project when, to the average Conservative voter, HS2 is more unpopular than Jeremy Corbyn? Martin is an angler and former Labour MP for Reading West.
I'm not sure HS2 can be stopped, but we know for sure it's going to do damage to our rivers. We know that because the government have admitted that the tunnelling required for HS2 is going to damage chalk aquifers that feed rivers like the Colne and the Chess and the Misbourne. We know it's going through areas of special scientific interest. It's damaging ancient woodlands. And I don't think it accords with the 25-year environment plan that the government have published. The government have made it perfectly clear they intend to leave the environment in a better state than they found it. I can't see they're going to do that with HS2. The government are legally obliged through the European Water Framework Directive to leave our rivers in a better ecological state. They're certainly not going to do that to this river if HS2 goes through as currently programmed.
Countryside like this is not put here for your benefit by the railway companies or even the conservation bodies. It is for hunting and shooting. When HS2 comes, the animals and birds that live here will not be rehomed by the local council. They will be lost. If your sport is affected by HS2, please leave a comment below. It's hard to know what it'll achieve, but if we can bring enough people together, we might still be able to make a difference to this lunacy line.